The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent, joined by Addie Rich. We are so glad you are here. Our podcast is dedicated to amplifying the voices of the disability community. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am a polio survivor, and Addie
has cerebral palsy.
Yeah, good.
Today and every day.
Today and tomorrow. And yeah. So did you have a good week?
I did. It's busy at work.
The new position and all.
Following the saga, I finally got my new position. I've been put on salary, but with that also comes additional reports and fun things that keep me up at night. And now that I am not hourly necessarily,
so now you're full on adulting.
I'm adulting.
Yes. Good for you. Another busy week and weekend. Went to the Triumph Foundation Adaptive Sports Festival in Santa Clarita. Made it for Saturday, but a nice day, especially since it didn't rain this year. That was nice.
Yeah.
So I got to play games outdoors. Did a little obstacle course. It was called the Robbie Rohan obstacle course. So did that in a respectable time. I think I did 25 seconds. It wasn't real long, but
I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. But I think the fastest time that I saw on the board was 18, but
wow.
Yeah, so they were booking through. They had a little, some jumps that you had to go over. Different stuff. It was fun. And then I played bocce ball. Got a chance to try that again.
Okay,
that was fun.
Your new favorite.
It's going to take time. Because I just need to get reps. I just need to sit with the ball you throw out there is called the jack ball. So I'm learning these things. And then everybody just, tries to get as close as they can to the jack ball.
Yeah.
And, and then the balls are different weights, different firmnesses. So you use them differently in different, I know.
Yeah, I know. You were explaining this a bit before we started this stuff. And it sounds like pool and croquet and golf all had a baby.
Yes, exactly. This is what it is. And it started for people with CP.
Okay.
That's where it started.
I don't know how we didn't fall over, but just saying. Balance is not our strong suit.
Because they have a specially made little, you've seen like a Hot Wheels track, right?
Yeah.
So basically it looks kind of like a Hot Wheels track, but if you looked at it from the side, it's kind of has that same scoop as a hockey stick.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then there are many different ways to adjust this in height, in how steep the ramp is, all of these different ways, and then you can get an aid to help you move it back and forth, and all that. So there's all levels of ability within that CP world, right? But now they've opened it up to everybody because they want to grow their sport, and so
makes sense.
So
they're like, hey, there are enough of us that will play. We better be friendly to other
yes. So this is the accommodation they make for bipeds or able-bodied people. They have you use your non-dominant hand.
Okay.
So that kind of levels things again too. But it's a lot of fun, and I picked it a lot because it's low impact, so it doesn't jack up my shoulders anymore, and even at that evening, I was a little sore. I think I pushed around a little more than I usually do, but I'll survive. What else? And then went yesterday to Burbank, California. Mm-hmm. I give them a kudos because they've done a very good job of really including the disabled community. They have their gym at the rec department open every weekend for like 4 different adaptive sports. They put on a adaptive sports festival once a year. They have an adaptive playground there at the park that we go to.
Super cool.
Yeah. And I don't know if I talked about this last week. I was so excited. I found out that they have, those. I guess it's essentially a wheelchair, but it's got the tracks they're rubber, but they're like a tank, that go around.
Yeah. We saw them at the Abilities Expo or something similar. The Trackets or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So you can go into the mountains of Burbank. You rent them for a couple hours and go
Amazing.
tour around.
I hope you're doing that.
Definitely going to be doing that. I just have to find. They recommend that you come with an able-bodied partner just in case you.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, you get turned over in the woods.
Me, I literally would tip myself over or something. I could see my sister being like, "Come on."
I don't want to have to chew my arm off to get free, or anything like that.
Right.
So that's it. Yeah, good stuff. So again, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you to Dina Peterson that was on last week. And also, she was at the sports fair, and I did some yoga with her.
Oh,
some chair yoga. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was great. I used it in the last couple of days since I learned it. I'm doing some stretching and different techniques that she was teaching. So thank you, Dina. And
thank you, Dina.
Today, we have DateAbility, right?
Yeah.
And the DateAbility app. And we're going to talk about the two sisters that came up with this whole idea, how it came about and all of that good stuff. So stay right there. We'll be right back after this word from Agyar Professional Training.
At Agyar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Agyar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Agyar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
From the Agyar Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
Don't put me on a pedestal, I'm not here to inspire. I've got my flaws, my highs, my lows, my own heart's fire. I laugh, I cry, I break, I mend just like anyone. I'm not your symbol of courage, I'm just me, done.
Yes, you are listening to Walk and Roll Live, and we have a couple of guests today. I always love when we have more than one. It kind of ramps up our challenge a little bit to navigate. But we have a couple of folks from DateAbility app, and why don't you guys give your names and where you're from, where you guys are from, and your nature of your disabilities, if you have them or not.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Alexa Child. I'm the co-founder of DateAbility. I'm from Colorado. I am not disabled, but a fierce ally and advocate for the community.
And I'm Jacqueline. I am Alexa's younger sister. We live together in Colorado, and I am disabled and chronically ill. I became disabled at 14 with various chronic illnesses that manifested into disabilities. I've had over 40 surgeries affecting my head to my toes, and have really just adjusted to life as a disabled person.
Very good.
Well, I like sisters, and I like fierce sisters because my sister is very similar to you guys. And when she was out visiting me last summer, we had her on, and it's super interesting to see how sisters relate and like what your life experiences are. Even though you're in the same place, same time, it's a very different world for each of you. I mean, as if we were quote unquote normal or not, but it's cool to see how everything kind of weaves and integrates. So we're excited to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So did you grow up in Colorado? Is that where you're from?
Yeah. So, well, we spent the first part of our lives in South Florida, which we were not fans of, but our dad was there for a job. And then we began spending summers and winters out in Colorado, and our family fell in love with it and ended up, building a house in Colorado. And in 2006, we made the move full time to Telluride, Colorado, which is a small ski resort and a really, really small town of about like 2,000 people. And we, Alexa left for college and law school, but I stayed here in Colorado for university. And we just love it so much.
Yeah,
much
after
better
10 years
fit.
on the East Coast, I was in the Northeast for college and law school. I was ready to come back to the mountains.
You're like, yeah, nope. We don't play.
This is our home.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you both ski?
Yes.
Yeah.
We started skiing when we were 2, and then we became really big skiers, and we skied all the time growing up when we lived in Telluride. And then back in, my skiing journey has really gone up and down because of my disabilities. There was a period of about 6 years that I wasn't able to be on the mountain, and finally broke that cycle by doing adaptive skiing one year, which was so fun and such an amazing year. And then I was finally cleared to go back to stand-up skiing. And while my skiing doesn't necessarily look like it did before, when I was younger, I'm glad whenever I get to go on the mountain. I'm like, it's fine. I'm fine doing the groomers and taking it easy because it's just like the best feeling going down the hill.
I mean, I'm the same way, not disabled, but I don't want to risk getting hurt. Getting hurt when you're an adult is like so much harder than when you're a kid, right? How are you supposed to go to the grocery store on crutches or anything, or type with a broken wrist for work? It's just, I'm the same. I want it to be enjoyable. I mean, Jacqueline's the most beautiful skier ever. I'm very jealous of her. I don't know what I look like, but I don't look as good as her. So that I know. And we love to ski. This year was rough for the ski resorts out west, but we got in a few days at least.
Why, not enough snow, or?
Not enough snow. Nope. They have closed. Most of them closed early.
Now, you said you don't know what it looked like, but how did it feel, the skiing? When you got back to it, did you enjoy it and had that same kind of?
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. And it was truly like riding a bike. I thought that it was going to be much harder after so many years off of skis. And I popped on my skis and I just went for it. And my family was behind me and they said it looked like I had taken no time off. So I was very
adaptive skiing you were really good at too, which that to me, I can't even fathom. Like it just seems that that's harder.
That was one of those things that growing up with a disability, I walked on crutches and braces my whole life. And I didn't really feel like I missed anything, but I wanted to go skiing. And there was a couple of opportunities that just kind of went awry. And then finally, when I moved here, there's an adaptive program up in the mountains here. And I went, and you say it's like riding a bike. I've never ridden a bike, so I don't know, but somehow, and I say this without bragging. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying for some reason it came naturally to me. So we did, with the instructor, we did the bunny trail for no more than an hour, maybe 30, 45 minutes. And he says, "You want to go up to intermediate?" I'm like, "Sure." And everything was just like I had done it before. It felt like, so it was so much fun.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that for some people, like it is really natural. And for others, it's not. I mean, if you try to get me on a snowboard, I won't make it down the hill. Mm-hmm. But for skiing, that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, I think, Doug, part of it is because you're like balancing yourself on crutches.
I wonder if translated.
Right? So you have a center of gravity. You understand how to center yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas like I just said, going grocery shopping on crutches for someone for someone who's not disabled is really hard because it does throw off your equilibrium, and it is that would actually make a lot of sense. I think having a lot of awareness too about your body also.
Real quick, we could get off this, but the very first time I was going, and somebody was going to be there. This is way before there were programs and stuff at ski resorts. But there was a gal who had a mono ski that was supposed to be there, and maybe I'd get a chance to try it. Well, we get there, and she's not there. So they were so great. They take me in, and they found the smallest pair of snowshoes that they could, ski shoes ski boots that they could find. And they put them on these shortest little kid skis they could. And then the boots, they taped to the bottom of my crutches. And then they put boots and skis on my feet. So I'm trying to go out. I go out the door out the side and go on the, and there's 4 things that are slippery going all these different directions. Yeah,
that's not fair. They made you like a giraffe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
a baby, a baby giraffe.
That's what I'm imagining,
Exactly.
like a giraffe on roller skates.
And I think a couple of times and all that, I might have like got everything going the right direction for about 4 or 5 inches. I'm like, woo!
Yeah.
No, no, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. But we're here to talk about the app.
That's right.
Which is super interesting because Doug and I feel like whether we're on air or off air, we do end up in like the dating conversation with many of our guests and or just ourselves, just talking through life. And we've always talked about like people's dating experience and like, when do you say something, when do you not, like how do you, so it's so cool. I actually saw a thing, I think it was on the Today Show with you guys a long time ago when I was visiting Cali, and I was like, my mom was like, there it is. At that point I like hadn't been married and stuff. She was like, you need to do this, but you lose time and touch and all the things, so I never found it. And then Instagram a bit ago, like maybe whenever I got in touch with you guys, suggested it, and I was like, oh my god, I think this is the app from long ago. So we've now found our way, but we want to be able to help tell the story of the app and kind of find out that stuff. Obviously it wasn't something that you're just like, what, disabled people need this and we know nothing about it, but we want to build an app. So obviously you're working from some life experience, so we'd love to kind of hear about that. When is it and what happened that you kind of went, we need this app?
Yeah, I had been using dating apps to date, like ever after graduating college. And so I had moved to Denver with Alexa. And because of my disabilities, I was, spending a lot of time at home, and I really didn't have like the energy to date. And so of course, using a dating app felt like the most accessible way to meet someone. And while there were plenty of people on the apps and people I could talk to, and it felt so close, my experiences were really not good, and it never resulted in anything positive. And so people would judge me about my disability. They would discriminate against me, telling me that I should never have biological children, telling me that I was a burden, telling me that it's too stressful to date me. Their families would have issues. Their friends would say offensive things about them dating a disabled person. And all of that just really wears you down. And I became really ashamed of my disability. And I just kind of went into a shell of myself where I didn't know who I was. I saw all my friends getting these careers and meeting people, and I felt like I was just really stuck in like this life that only revolved around my disability. And I always felt like when I was dating, I was never given an opportunity to show myself beyond my disability, because it would either come up in the beginning because I felt like I had to say something and like warn them.
Our dog is barking. Can you hear her?
It's totally good.
She's dreaming, up, but she's having the weirdest little dreaming noise. She's like, I can't hold my happen anymore.
And so,
sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, it's fine. So I would always want to have to, I would feel like I had to disclose because I didn't want to like lie about myself. But then also like felt like I didn't need to tell all of the details about my disability to someone right off the bat. And so I just I never felt like I could be myself. And then in 2021, I had to get a feeding tube due to gastroparesis, and adding that layer of just like differences and complexities about, having a feeding tube and not necessarily eating regularly, and all of what comes along with my GI disorder, that added even more anxiety to it. And I had reiterated to Alexa that like I wished that there was a way that I could just meet people like me, because I felt like there wasn't a real way to meet people like myself that wasn't in such a clinical setting. And Alexa suggested that we make the dating app, and that's what we did. And you can talk about like how we actually did it.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, there's so much in hindsight now and looking back, like there's a really universal experience among disabled people, even if they have different diagnoses. And I was with an old friend last week, and her brother-in-law is a quadriplegic. He had a diving accident, and he's been having some gastrointestinal issues, and they are suggesting a colostomy bag. And his reaction to getting that was very similar to your reaction, getting a feeding tube. And I said, oh, I totally understand where he's coming from. It's like the last, like one more thing that needs to be added, or one more thing you're taking away. Like for you, it was eating that made you feel normal. And for him, it's like, his bowel movements and everything. And so I was like, it is fascinating once you start really talking to people that, like, despite the diversity in diagnoses, the common ground and the shared perspective is there. And I think that's what's so wonderful about the disability community and maybe potentially overlooked. And so we wanted to get everyone basically like in the same space, right? Because sure, you can meet another disabled person on Hinge or Bumble, but it is like finding a needle in a haystack because you have so many other people who might discriminate against you that you have to go through. I mean, even I feel like when I get on Hinge as somebody who's not disabled, finding a decent person is like a needle in a haystack. And so
that's what I was gonna say. I think it's not like disability related necessarily, but I think in my own experience too, like as you age, people's experience and things also make people more open-minded. There's two ways. It's either you're more closed-minded or you're more open-minded. I think it can go both ways, but like as a young person, right, like high school or whatever, there's so many aesthetics and things that are being the judgment meter of dateableness. That's not even a word, but you know what I mean? But as you get older, people see the soul that's in the container sometimes, and they're like, oh, I didn't even notice. And you're like, how did you not even notice? But it's nice to put it in a space and a place like that where the app is defining.
I think like a shared perspective or similar perspective is so important, no matter like if you're disabled or not disabled. Yeah. I'm not going to date somebody or marry somebody who like views the world in a completely different way than I do. It's just, that might be like romantic when you're in high school, but it's really like not ideal for a long lasting foundation and commitment. And so dateability like gets rid of those barriers and just like creates the space. I went to Office Depot, got a notebook, brought it to the hospital when Jacqueline was recovering. And we were like, what do we want to see in each screen, each page of the app? And we drew it pen to paper. Neither of us have any like tech experience, me especially. And so we definitely went on a bit of a roller coaster finding someone who could bring our vision to life. When you first start out, you don't know what questions to ask, like if there's a portfolio. Sure. So we chose someone who said they could deliver, who could not deliver. And so that was 6 months of thinking that we were building this app that, actually wasn't happening behind the scenes. But, what's meant to be will be, I do believe that. And we eventually found a team here outside of Boulder to bring our vision to life and create our first version of the app. And then as you connect with more people in the network and then in the tech space, we eventually met a team of engineers that came in-house with us that really are dedicated to making the app accessible the way we want. And even if they don't, know exactly what that takes, like they're willing to learn and grow with us, and we're willing to learn from our users. And so we have seen several iterations of the app. In September, we launched 2.0. We completely rewrote the app, rewrote the code, designed, gave it a visual facelift and made it more sophisticated and made it so that we are able to add features on really easily as we grow and as we hear from our users. And so that's where we're at now. We have an in-house team of engineers. We feel like we finally know what we're doing. But I mean, the way you described it, like, oh, I want to build an app and I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm just going to do it. I mean, like, you're not completely wrong. Yes, there's life experience that shaped what we want from the app and, what problem we're solving. But when it comes to the app itself, like, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we knew that, like, we wanted to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you obviously had the fortitude. I was going to say the fortitude and the passion to be like, you know what, hook or crook, we're doing this. We will walk around the hospital and say, what do you think? Like, if that's what it takes, because I feel like for some people, there's the fire inside of like, oh, well, that's disappointing, or you know what I mean, or whatever the case, right? We may be like hopelessly optimistic, but I'd rather be hopelessly optimistic and kind of dumb than like hopelessly pessimistic and an overthinker about like what I could or couldn't do. And it sounds like you finally have gotten aligned with people that maybe it's not their world. They don't live in a world of being different, but they understand that everybody belongs, and their technical skills are going to make it so everybody can belong, I guess.
Yeah, and it's actually so interesting because we will meet like different people who we work with, and they will not realize that like their family member or themselves are living with a chronic illness. Like we met with someone who had diabetes, and he said, does that like make me chronically ill? And we're like, yeah, it does. Like it impacts your day to day. It affects your food choice, your like everything. And then, we've had people who say, oh, like, do my mental health diagnoses, quote unquote, count towards being disabled? And obviously that like it totally depends on the person. But people have just become a lot more open to even like learning about disability.
Maybe thinking that they are disabled. We don't want it to be a dirty word. And so, and we definitely saw that when we first launched, there'd be some discourse like, I would never want to date another disabled person. And that's fascinating. It's self-discrimination. I'm like, you are, as a disabled person, like you're saying you don't want to date someone who is like you. I mean, that's wild to me. And I think we're trying to like get rid of that stigma and like thinking that disabled is not a dirty word. And there is such a gray area. And that's something that we thought about when we first launched. Okay, do we limit it to disabled people only? And if so, how would we verify that? And then we decided not to, that there are allies, there are advocates who are not disabled who would want to join, who maybe are tired of like the shallowness of the other apps or just like over it and want to join a new community. Or you're not sure if you're disabled. I mean, I have suffered from depression, but do I consider myself disabled? No, but somebody else might. And so there is there is that spectrum and that gray area. And we just want to truly be inclusive and welcoming. And so whoever wants to join, if they respect our mission, they want to, they respect our values and they like what we're doing, the more the merrier, truly.
Well, I've been disabled a long time. And I never heard of this before. So just recently I heard about this, just what you were talking about there, letting, typical or atypical people in. There was something that was brought to my attention about disability fetishes. So have you heard of that? Have you needed to address it on the app?
I relate to. I also didn't know what that was until starting DateAbility. And so that was a new world for me too. And it's a really valid question and a question that we get a lot. The devotee world is very, it's not so black and white. There's a lot of consensual devotee relationships. But for the safety and, the comfort of our users, we have decided to ban all devotee relationships, and any sort of reports of that behavior or language results in a ban from DateAbility. And we really haven't struggled with that issue. I think that it really helps that we have established that this is a place that is a legitimate business. It has people behind the app. It has people moderating the app, and like real success stories and love and connections have come out of it.
Yeah, when we first launched, I said, okay, before we go down this venture, this rabbit hole, we need to download every app that says that they're disabled dating app.
Smart.
And that says is like the key word there, right? So between the two of us, we divvied it up and we downloaded it. Either the app would crash right away, or it felt very fetishy, devotee, or it felt scammy, and it would take you down like this dark hole. Like everything the internet should not be, but can be, but is what was in those apps. And that's exactly what we didn't want. And so, our story was featured in the Washington Post the week we launched. We wanted people to know, like, this is who's behind the app. Like, there is accountability, there is responsibility, and like this spammy, scammy, predatory behavior will not be tolerated. And so I think that has weeded out a lot of people and a lot of bad actors. Like, we don't see it very often, but if we do, it's a hard no.
You set the tone very early.
Yes.
Sounds
which is
like,
super important, right?
Yeah.
Because also, I'm going to make a controversial statement. Because, yeah, I know. But I think that there is some assumption sometimes that because some part of us is differently abled, because I don't really like disabled, differently able, it's a different container. That like there is a lack of smarts or there is a lack of like intuition, that there's a naivete that comes with being different, right? And it's like, no. The credibility, like you should be given credibility first and lose it in your character, right? So I feel like it's super important that you all kind of said, no, like we're starting from the same if not a higher standard than everybody else who does these things, because it's like Doug and I talk about, like people that will speak louder to me when I'm in my chair and I'm like, I hear you. I'm just seated. You know what I mean? It's like,
God,
they can't help it, but.
No, they can't help it.
They can't totally help it. That is
Too nice.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Like, no.
No, yeah. I mean, there are so many assumptions, and like you say, there are a lot of assumptions that disabled people are more vulnerable, and that is true of disabled people and non-disabled people. Like everyone is is susceptible to romance scams and things like that, but making a blanket statement that all disabled people are vulnerable to bad actors on the internet is really dangerous, and it infantilizes our experience. And it's like, actually, like if when you hop on DateAbility, you see people just like you and I, and who are living life like every single person and just looking for connection.
I always wondered if that stereotype that disabled people are more prone to scams. One, it has to do with like what you were saying, like there's assumptions about intellect. But I also wondered if it stems from like the assumption that disabled people are more desperate for love and companionship than non-disabled people. So like it doesn't, even if they're the smartest person ever and they go to Harvard, because they're disabled, they're like automatically more desperate. Yeah. And so they'll take whoever they can get. And I think that's part of it too. And I think that's also something we are trying to walk away from, is that you, as a disabled person, like you can have standards, you can be picky. And Jacqueline like knows this, that you felt like you weren't, like you were desperate and not picky. So like, like you have been through like this psychological journey where like you yourself felt desperate. You would take whatever you could get. People would tell you that you're gonna meet such a special man one day who's gonna marry you. So special. Yeah, they'll be special, but not because you're disabled, right? Because of other things. Same. The person who marries me is gonna be very special. Trust me, to deal with me for the rest of their lives. Right. But it is like this really fascinating thing that gets like internalized within the disability community, because we will get emails that like kind of like imply that like, oh, this person I know might be so desperate that they might be like susceptible to romance scams. And it's like, well, there's a part that we can educate our own user base into not thinking like that and to not buying into that messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that inner conversation with myself sometimes, especially early in my life, would I be more, I don't know, forgiving maybe of faults that I would see in somebody, things like that, because I don't know what my, my desirability is going to be. Yeah.
We talk about that a lot, right? That like either you stay too long, you put up with things that you shouldn't, because you're like, okay, well, life's about to get complicated. Life's already complicated. And if I complicate myself even more, do I want to be complicated? And I think that is something that we talk about, but it's cool that you're creating the space that kind of says, all right, everybody, even playing field, we're all different. Like you have choice and you have say and all the things, right? And I think a lot of times that isn't given in general society, whether it's because they give you a pat on the head and tell you how sweet you are or whatever. I like that it's a space where it's like, okay, everybody, there's, take that excuse out of your bag and let's just go.
Yeah. And what we're often asked about success stories about DateAbility. And I think that a lot of people asking those are implying that success is, a marriage and a monogamous relationship. And that is one version of success that we see on DateAbility. But not everyone on DateAbility is looking for that. And there are people who are just looking to casually connect, or, you know, to have like a fling and to have a one night stand, a hookup. And that
what are you talking about? None of us ever want that.
That's also success in our book, because like exactly what you said, an even playing field. We just want people to have this equitable shot at connecting and feel like everyone else, and like all of our non-disabled counterparts who can easily do that on the other apps.
We want you to be able to get your heart crushed too. Just like everybody else.
Suffer the heartbreak.
Dating sucks. Like it does suck, but I have to worry about being discriminated against for something that I can't change about myself, or like wouldn't change, because I know, you know, Jacqueline wouldn't change her disabled self. But, and then also, you know, I've definitely stayed too long in relationships, but not because society was telling me that like I'm not worthy and I should stay. It's just like my own stuff. And so I can't imagine what it's like to have the external pressures and this external stigma influencing your dating decisions for the work, for bad.
But it's a really good point that like, yeah, even heartbreak, it does teach you important life lessons. We have a user who's become a friend of the app who got into his first relationship from DateAbility, and they did break up for completely normal, typical reasons. And he said that it just gave him the confidence and the reassurance that he is desirable and that he's worthy of love. And so I was just like, that is that.
You're like, ta-da, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And that will send you your sticker, first breakup under your belts. Congratulations.
You survived.
Right.
Passage.
Here's to many more.
Yeah. Right. That's the experience. That's dating. Yes. And that's the way it should be. Like, I don't think to say like, oh, the cheap disabled people will get married and fall in love. I mean, maybe, but maybe not. And that's like everyone else.
Exactly. I mean, if you don't land on your butt, you don't know what it feels like to be on your feet, because you just assume that you're always going to be on your feet. So I think it's a beautiful story. So can you tell us more about like the app and kind of how it works and what you do when, let's say I download it, then what happens and what am I talking about in my profile?
Yeah, so the profile has, very basic information that you may see on other apps, like your political affiliation, religion, a bio, and activities and interests. But what makes it different and sets us apart is this DateAbility Deet section, and that really solves the issue of disclosure, which is something I struggled with. It's something that like I think every single disabled person I know has struggled with. And when creating DateAbility, we were like, how do we make this not read like a medical chart, and just like, be really natural and neutral. And so we came up with the DateAbility Deet section, and it's a list of broad terms that are vague. There's no diagnoses, but it's like chronic illness, permanent medical device,
autoimmune, like immunocompromised,
mobility impairment, and you can just check that on your profile. It's totally optional, but it just presents it in this neutral and natural way without disclosing like all the details of your medical history. But in a way that it could be a nice icebreaker, it could be a conversation starter, and it's out there, so you're not asking yourself when and how am I going to tell this person that I have a service dog and he has to come with me everywhere.
Yeah. Do you think it cuts down on the insensitive comments that you were talking about at first? I mean, does it kind of it informs people? Okay, maybe I don't want to get into a dating situation with this person without having to be ugly about it.
Yeah, I think so. I think like it helps just just see the person as a whole person,
and decide if they want that.
Yeah,
I do think that there are disabilities and diagnoses that can complement each other, and I do understand that, and we've heard that from disabled people. Like if somebody is a wheelchair user, they might not be looking for another wheelchair user because they have accessibility needs that they just like want that person, their partner could be disabled but something else. And so I do think like it allows you to pass on people without being nasty, like you said, without having to ask questions, or I also think like asking questions is good though.
Yeah.
And if you know what you're dealing with, if you have baseline understanding, then you know how to respectfully ask questions, right? Like it's not like, so what's your disability? Like you can say like, oh, I see you're immunocompromised. I have a friend who has lupus. Like, what's your diagnosis or something like that? I think you can ask questions nicer. Yeah. When you have a baseline understanding the other person is dealing with.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, honestly, it does make a difference if the questions, if you're rude, you're rude. But if the questions are coming from a disabled person, like it feels like a little more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I know in the community, it's a whole spectrum of people, and some people don't ever ask me, that I wouldn't ask about your medical condition. And then, I'm fine with it. My whole life I've had people ask, and as long as they ask respectfully, I'll give you an answer. But, as soon as you say something like, what happened to you, then I, make something up. But
I shoved myself in the fridge. I don't
so
know.
on the app, you can choose not to divulge and then date somebody or start to connect with somebody and then divulge that when you want to.
Yeah. And I think that like being on the platform, being on the platform already weeds people out, because if you're signing up for DateAbility,
the majority of the people are going to be disabled or chronically ill. Right? So we don't want to force people to disclose. And that's like the opposite. That's like swinging the pendulum the other way of being so afraid to disclose. But now you must disclose. But I agree. And I still think, asking questions as a non-disabled person, I still ask Jacqueline questions because I don't know how she's feeling. When we go on walks, it's you tell me when you're ready to go, because I'm aware that our abilities or our stamina are different. And so I think asking questions is good. And I think that our society has gotten scared of asking questions, especially because I think people have lost the ability to be tactful. And so they don't know how to ask questions nicely. But I think questions are great. And I won Queen of Questions Award in 5th grade. And so I will stand by that questions are good. Learning is good. And I want to bring that back and teach
you have got to put that on a t-shirt.
Questions again.
I want to see you sporting a t-shirt that says that on it.
Oh, make questions great. Something like that.
That is my class award in 5th grade was Queen of Questions. I was always asking questions, and I still am, because I love to learn. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I do understand that people have lost the ability to ask questions with grace and without judgment. And so I want DateAbility to bring that back again.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a beautiful thing. Doug and I were talking about this before you guys appeared, and we've talked about this before, but for me, so clearly if you can't see us or haven't listened before, there's a big age gap between the two of us. So we're different generations and genders and things, and talking about when do I disclose to someone? So I have cerebral palsy. At different phases in my life, I've used different assistive devices and whatever, but I've never been able to drive because of my disability. So normally when you're doing dating stuff, I would always put a line in there that said arriving in a different container or something that hinted at the fact that I was different, right? But it's not overtly written. So if you read, you might say, hey, you mentioned that you're different. What's different or whatever, right? But if you just read and saw my picture and went, ooh, I like that girl, then there would always become that conversation of, I'd say, well, I don't drive. And that was always the door that kicked open the conversation of, oh, well, I have cerebral palsy and I can't drive. And then, wait, what's that? You know what I mean? So I think it's different for other people, though. If you're seated or, you have something immunocompromised or something where you don't see it at all. Mine, I walk in, I look a little bit like a flamingo. Clearly something's going on. But for other people, that might not be the case. And so having this gives them a great way to kind of go, hey, something's different, and I'll give you a hint, and then open the conversation, right?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to being visibly disabled and being invisibly disabled. I think one, you don't have to hide it when you're visibly disabled, but at the same time, then you can't hide it. I think it's really interesting. Yeah. For Jacqueline, she has invisible disabilities. If she took all her clothes off, you would see all her scars from surgery, and then but walking down the street, you'd have no idea. And right. I think that you could mask your disability when you need to, or when you needed to in the past. Now that with DateAbility, luckily, I think that time is over in your life, and you can be more authentically yourself. Yeah. But then also it brings up a lot of questions, you don't look disabled. Oh yeah. Well, being last weekend, I thought you were disabled, but it brings up something like a skepticism. So, there's not a preference either way. You're disabled, and it is what it is. But I do think it's interesting people's experiences with disclosure when you have an invisible versus a visible disability.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I love that you guys made this, because I mean, the disclosures are sort of there.
Right.
No, you're there. You're on an app, and if you were awake when you downloaded it and it wasn't 1 a.m. and you weren't drunk, then you probably know that you're in a space where, the field is more even than it might have been if you're on like Match.com or something, where we just kind of get to see what gets thrown at us based on.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I came from a time when, that wasn't even an issue because there were no dating apps. So everybody that I met saw me, at first. But then as time went by, and being on the radio, I talked to a lot of people.
I was like, Doug, you have to go backwards. You have a voice that people were like, ooh, that Doug. And then,
who's that guy? But there'd be times when I would talk to somebody so long that at some point they want to meet me. And then I would be kind of confronted with that dilemma. Do I tell them? Sometimes it just feels weird,
Yeah.
Like does it, is it a point to you, or why are you telling me this? So it's difficult.
It is weird. Like I'm not diagnosing my health information to first dates. Like,
right.
No.
Yeah.
But that is none of your business, like what diagnosis I have. And so it's so fascinating that they're like, look, if you're disabled and you don't say you're disabled, you're a liar.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, I don't tell you that I have
yes.
disorder, I'm not a liar. But like, it's so fascinating to me. And I'm like, you're not entitled to that information about you. But I think like it is a part of you. And, like you don't drive, Addie. So like that is something. And I think you felt that like it would come up like where you can't do something or you don't do something. And so you have to explain why. So it is really interesting. Like it's almost like a double standard. And it's fascinating. For sure. So much.
The funniest story regarding that is when I was married, my wife cut hair, and she would cut hair at home. And I remember I was out one day and I came home while she was cutting this young lady. And I just rushed in to get something and then left again. And my wife tells me later, the gal said, "Why didn't you warn me?" And she's like, "Warn you of what?" "Well, that he walks on crutches." And talk about a weird circumstance. Wouldn't it be weirder if you didn't see the husband and like, "Hey, I got to warn you, my husband walks on crutches." Well, why are you telling me that? So I don't. Yeah, people are odd.
Oh God, yeah. And I think all that goes to just like the ignorance and all of the unknowns about disability, because we have been othered and we've been like made to hide, and people have hidden us, and there's just like no representation of disability, and even though it is truly everywhere and you just don't see it, or, you don't pay attention to it. Yeah. And so if that could be fixed with conversations like this, just like bringing it to the surface. And
what show were we watching where the sister was a wheelchair user and she was an ambulatory wheelchair user?
Yeah.
What show was it?
It was the Harlan, the British show.
It was British, filmed in Manchester. I cannot remember what the show is called. I'll have to look. But the sister, who is just like a supporting role, is an ambulatory wheelchair user. And apparently the comments on the internet were like, why is she using a wheelchair? Like, why is she in a wheelchair? Or people were saying, oh my God, is it going to be revealed that the parents abused her and she became disabled? Like convinced that it was like part of her storyline. Like it had to be more. There had to be more there. Not that she was just disabled and she's just a character in the show, and that's her existence, because it has been made to be othered. And I thought it was, the comments were cracking me up because people were so focused on this. And my reaction was like, that's so cool. Like, I love that she's an ambulatory wheelchair user, like not just a wheelchair user, but ambulatory. I was like, that's awesome.
She did that to mess with people's minds, huh?
Right. Yeah. Like in 1 second, she's standing, and the next she's in a wheelchair.
Seeing a comment saying, this show is really good, but the continuity of the girl using the wheelchair and then walking in the next scene it just ruins it for me.
Oh God.
Have you guys ever seen Dead to Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Christina Applegate, she obviously has MS, and like her health was failing, right? And so I read a lot of backstory in that last season that if you notice, she's always like seated or in something is holding her up, right? But they don't really have her character move. Somebody moves around her, and I always thought like it would be fascinating if they actually had written it in. Because the characters had developed a friendship enough at that point that Judy, I think her name is Judy, right?
I think so.
If she had helped her, right, that would have been another arc that they could have used. That here's this girl that does all this crazy stuff, and now by the end of the season, she's actually become like a caregiver. I'm like, that was a missed opportunity that they just kind of placed her as a prop and let her talk. And I was like, you totally could have created another scenario that acknowledged, I mean, even if she didn't want to say what was necessarily going on, but write it in so her body actually can deal.
Yeah.
It was similar to what I know that Harrison Ford isn't actually a Parkinson's, but similar to what Shrinking did with his Parkinson's diagnosis. Like people do you get diagnosed with things, and like Christina Applegate had this thing, so like why not write it into the show? Take advantage of it, use it as like another storyline,
a teachable moment. And you didn't have to. She didn't have to reveal her diagnosis. You could have made it a diagnosis on the show that then accommodated her actual physical self. And I don't want to ruin the show, but if people had watched that show, it would have made a lot of sense and been really interesting in the arc of how they ultimately came together. And like, what does care and love mean? And when the world changes, how do those around you change to help? So anyways, writers, pay attention.
Yeah, they're supposed to be the creative ones.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about the app for a second, because we're talking about different abilities and disabilities and all those things. So how do you make it like accessible to the people with the differences? Like what is done in the app that can help make people with like low vision or different things, right, also use the app?
Yeah, and that's been a priority for us. And it is, to be honest, it's a learning curve because one, there are so many different softwares that people use and they all work differently, which is great for, for people's different needs and accommodations, but not great for the people building the apps. But we have just thoroughly tested the app with our different users and the different softwares that they use to help screen readers, and that has been successful. And it's also something that's ever evolving because things change all the time. And we have added a space for image descriptions on profile pictures, which has been really cool to see. It's also like a very nice exercise about like describing yourself in the picture. I think it can be really reflective. And so we have that. We make sure the color contrast is up to par. That's something that my eyes are really sensitive to is color contrast. And so that's been really nice. We really just like take accessibility very seriously, and we're not afraid to say that it's not perfect, but we will always try and keep going and iterating and making it better because everyone is so diverse, and it can get tricky when one thing make something accessible to some person and it makes it
unaccessible. Yeah, exactly.
If I may, because I wanted to ask this for a bit, but I think it works perfectly here, is how much of your users are a partner in this part of the process where you're learning things from them and updating the app and making it more accessible and usability is up?
A lot. And like there's no like official process or anything, but we are very communicative with our user base and our community. And I mean, we're talking to people on social media and through email, and that I think that the iterations that we have made mostly have stemmed from community feedback, which is really important because if we're not making an app that people want to use, what's the point? Right?
User first. Yeah, user first experience for sure.
Okay, so question. So explain the app for those of people who have sat with us but are like, okay, well, now what? It's free. What is it? Like, how does it work? What's going on with it so that people can figure out
Yeah, so you'll sign up, you'll create your profile, add your pictures, and creating like a good profile is important on a dating app. And it is, we have a completely free version, and it is a robust free version. You can search within your location, you can search outside of your location, you can make location a deal breaker, you can, adjust the age, of course, and then you can get to swiping and liking and chatting, and in order to message people, two users have to like, so it is a two-party consent app, and yeah, like unlimited swipes, unlimited likes. We really did not want to place any financial barriers on finding connection, and so we do have a premium version that is $4.99 a month, and that just adds, those extra filters. If you want to filter by religion or political affiliation, you can do that. But we really just want to make sure that people have access to this platform.
And we're available on Android, Apple, and then we also have a web app version because we know that mobile devices aren't always accessible either, and people prefer their desktop. And so we have that ability as well, and the apps are identical, so to each other on all platforms.
And what is the age range? So like you have, like if you were looking at an age range of users that are the pool.
Minimum is 18. You have to be 18 to join. And then, we have users that are up in, I think we have a few users in their 80s. But the majority of our users are like 24 to 40, which is, consistent with other dating apps, and social apps. But we do have a very like diverse user base.
Yeah. I mean, we have, ableism does not go away when you get older, when you become a senior citizen. And so we definitely have people who are older on the app. We have, I think the split is like 50-50 between people who identify as female and male, maybe even more female, which is odd for the apps. Usually it's the opposite. At one point, 48% of our user base identified as queer. So it's an incredibly intersectional community and diverse community, which we love and are very proud of.
So even if it isn't like based on dating, do you feel like it has a community flavor to it? Like, let's say you're not looking for a date, you're looking for friends.
Yeah.
Can that also happen there?
Yeah, we have a section that you can put what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something casual, if you're looking for friendship, you can add that tag to your profile. And people are like pretty respectful of that. And we do have a lot of people asking like, hey, I'm married, but I'm looking for some girlfriends who are chronically ill. Can I join? And we say, absolutely.
No, I think that's a really powerful thing. I was just telling Doug yesterday, I went to a networking event that's here in Atlanta, and it's called Girlies Making Friends in Atlanta. And it's for people. So I'm 47. So it's for people like I never had kids. I don't, you know what I mean? So you don't need people in the pickup lane. And I don't go to yoga because I don't drive. So like, different things like that. And part of the reason they created that was like networking and stuff. But I went to an event yesterday. I'm the only one with wheels. Like, it would be nice to have a place like DateAbility where I can go, hey, I want girlfriends, where you can be like, Jesus, my back hurts today. And like all this other stuff, right? Where people aren't like, oh, here she goes again. I think it's cool and important to give community, because for some people, your only community is your caregivers, your PTs, your OTs, your hospital staff or whatever. So to say, hey, we know there's so much more to you. Let's open the window virtually. It's important. So
yeah, spot on.
Well, usually I'm the clock watcher here, and this got away from me. It's so fascinating.
So it's totally fine.
That's good. So we're going to kind of pivot here, and just like, do you have some vision for the future? Some things that you'd like to add, haven't added yet, or thinking about adding, or whatever?
Cool. We're constantly growing and improving our app and adding new features. And so if anyone listening is a user and has any ideas, they are always free to email or contact us. We just want to make it a fun place where it doesn't feel like disability is at the center of it in a negative way. And I think just like adding to the conversation of disability and normalizing it and making sure that it's talked about.
I mean, we want to continue to grow internationally. I think we're available on, I think it's 4 continents now. So we want to continue that. We want to be able to translate the app into other languages. We really want DateAbility to become a household name. If DateAbility is ever mentioned on a scripted TV show, we'll know we've made it. It's something like Grindr, Bumble, Tinder. Just have that. So we want it to become a household name, and that's our goal, and that's like where we see our future.
It's amazing.
All right, I think it'd be fun to watch.
I know, right? Awesome.
Thank you.
Each week on Walk and Roll Live, we share honest and open stories of people living with a disability.
The surgeon who did my knee surgery, this was again emergency surgery in Fountain Valley, and luck of the draw, I get Dr. Grant Robichaux. And there was a surgeon out of Newport who he and his girlfriend were accused of drugging women and doing things to them. And by August, the news of him being arrested had become public.
Join us weekly for another powerful episode. Walk and Roll Live, wherever you get your podcasts. Life, limitless. Subscribe now.
From the Ugyar Professional Training Studios, you're listening to Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories.
Well, that's enough to make you want to mingle a little bit.
DateAbility is my new favorite app. The story of 2 sisters and the fact that a sister saw a need and then met the need of her sister in a way that made her feel normal. I hate doing it that way, but it is true. We want to be just like everybody else. I constantly say it's a container difference. It's not a soul difference or brain difference. So
we want love.
Yeah.
Right? Or companionship or, whatever it is that, fits in that time of life that you're in.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we know in modern times, the apps are what helps us do it.
And, we've talked a lot about, when do you reveal it? In this day and age, a lot of the dating is going on online to kind of get it started. And, do I just kind of bomb it out all my information at the beginning? Or should I hold back? How long do I hold back? When do I say it?
What code word do I say?
Yeah, exactly. So, it was awesome not only to learn about the app, but to kind of explore all that for, ourselves and our listeners as well. So next week, we've got Gemma Davis is going to join us here. And is one of those stories where, her journey has inspired her to, start an organization to help with all that. So we'll learn about that next week. Always adding, again, new resources as I travel around to different events. I meet different people who, have resources, websites to address different things. So adding those all the time. So check it out and see what's new. And I should start putting up more pictures of different events.
You are out and about.
Yeah. And, and your new organization that you're going out on the town with.
Yeah.
We'd love to see some of that.
Yeah, we'll have to, so they can see we do other things than sit in this booth and talk to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. We do get out. We do have other lives and, different parts of our lives. Absolutely. So we'll do that next week too. So thanks for listening. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, with Addie Rich from the Ugyar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.